I'm Ron Wilson, Director of the Huck Boyd Institute for Rural Development at K-State. Big thanks to Deborah Cole, who's on with us. She is Program Leader Coordinator for K-State Research and Extension Community Vitality and our partner in this effort. Remote Work Wednesday is a project of the Remote Online Initiative. And there you see the site. The page is kansasremotework.com, and it tells about the Remote Online Initiative, which offers month-long online classes that enable participants to become trained and certified as a remote worker or a remote work team leader, a remote team supervisor. That Remote Online Initiative is available to Kansans and others. And so Remote Work Wednesday is intended to support, augment, and enhance that. Remote Work Wednesday is a Zoom call each month for anyone interested in remote work. The goal is simply to learn about the opportunities and challenges of remote work or hybrid work for those who have that option. It's a free call on the second Wednesday of each month, so we want you to join us. And speaking of next month, just a quick look ahead, a preview of next month. Katie Wagner from Enriched Ag will be sharing her experiences working remotely for an entirely remote company, in her case, with an ag tech startup company. So we hope you can join us next month. This month, we're delighted to have Brent O'Connor and Joel Wallace with us from Canopy. We can discuss the mechanics of remote work or hybrid or combinations, but I'm reminded of the title of a best-selling book, Culture Trumps Everything. And so culture is fundamental. And so I was pleased to see that in our theme today. We're going to learn about a remarkable company, which has really worked at building culture, and that includes remote work. Brent O'Connor is Director of Engineering at Canopy, which has been described as a public service company that works to simplify the burden of accountability reporting and help organizations embed a culture of evaluation and continuous improvement. We understand Brent has over 20 years experience in the technology industry. This is a lot of fun. It's said that he loves trees found in the mountains the most, and trees in the form of paper the least. So we appreciate that in a technology person. And Joel, as I understand it, is glad to use trees to smoke meats. So we like that too. Brent has led the technology team and many clients in many different forms of remote work. So Brent, please share with us about Canopy, how you've built culture, and some lessons learned.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, and nice to be here with you all. I'll go ahead and share my screen here. I have some slides to show you. I'm not going to do it in presenter mode because it blocks off where my camera is, and I want to be able to see you guys. So that's why I'm not going full screen here. But this is our company logo. We're located in Manhattan, Kansas. We spun out of Kansas State University, the Office of Educational Innovation and Evaluation in 2021. This here is a photo from, I guess, early on. Like, I don't know if that maybe Joel remembers exactly, but like first couple weeks, I think, or around there. So you can kind of see here visually, at least. I think I'm not going to count that. I think there's 14 of us when we originally spun out of Kansas State University. Today, we've grown, and you can see the photo of our team. Also, we've grown in terms of the amount of clients that we have. We primarily serve a national nutrition program called SNAP-Ed, and we've grown in terms of, there's some of the numbers there, current. I think those are current numbers. Yeah, because 2020 cooperative extension is the new number. So, and I know some of you are familiar with cooperative extension being here in Kansas. So we continue to grow, which is exciting. And this is just kind of a map of some of the clients we serve. The different colors represent states that are all SNAP-Ed versus extension and SNAP-Ed or extension. Um, these are just really quick. I think this is important to no matter, and I like what you said, Ron, in terms of your culture being very important to whether you do hybrid, remote, or all in person. And I think one of the things that people keep saying about our company, people that work with us, or people like we've had students that have left to go on to other companies and then come back, and they say because they come back because of our culture, because they love it so much. And I think the core values really help define our culture. And in fact, like our performance reviews, that's one of the metrics we do is we say, are you a fit in terms of our culture and these different core values and things? And so that it's very key to what we do. So our journey, started in 2021. So I mean, not everybody has their cameras on, but how many people remember COVID? I'm sure everybody probably remembers COVID. And when we started, we were kind of on the tail end of that. And so and we didn't have any office space. So when we started, we were all remote, and except for myself, Joel, and Aaron, who's the president, we shared office space with PyStar here in Manhattan, Kansas. And one of the things that we were thinking and talking and discussing is that, remote work is okay and it feels fine, and we're doing great work remotely, and we're able to make it work because nowadays, as you know, we have great tools, and especially being a new company, we can choose the tools that we use, and we were able to choose great tools that work well remotely, and uh, everything was able to carry on just fine. But one of the things that we it's like okay, but it's like, well, what, it's just not feel quite as good as it could be, and like the energy didn't seem as high or as good, I guess you could say. And like we even started researching like what other companies are doing, reading about other companies, and really just contemplating different ideas and solutions. And when we met in person, and I remember early on, we were building another system. We also have another system that we built for SNAP. It is the national system for their annual plan and annual report. And there, we met in a office space in person here at PyStar, and we remember just the energy was really high and really good in person. And so, um, that's when it was like, well, maybe we need to do more in-person stuff. And then kind of what happened from there is we ended up shopping around for office space. We found a building, and uh, we didn't like right away make any requirements in terms of like policy about how often people came in to work or anything like that. But so people were kind of coming in, maybe one day a week, or it just really varied in terms of how in person people were utilizing the space. And then Aaron and Joel and I and started having some discussions about like, well, maybe we should make it a policy to really encourage uh, some in-person time, and that also made it easier to schedule meetings if we have specific days slotted for in-person work for those that are in Manhattan. And so we slotted Monday and Wednesdays for that is an absolute requirement. And then uh, you could have another day that you work a full day, or you could split that into 2 half days or whatever. But that's kind of what our policy became, and so that we could kind of have the best of both worlds. We know that life happens, and that's part of culture is that we want to support people the best way that we can, and we know that there's soccer games or whatever that people want to leave early for to go, so watch their kids, or doctor's appointments, things like that, or it just works better because they have a repairman coming to their house, or you know any number of reasons. It works better to allow flexibility in that area. And so we've been doing, I can't remember exactly how long. I know it's been at least, maybe Joel knows exactly, but it's been at least 2 years, I think, that we've solidified on that policy. And so far, it's worked well. We haven't had any, um, at least to me in my department, I haven't had anybody really complain. And we also, I guess, the other thing I should note is we do leave it up. I guess part of the policy is that we do leave it up to the director's discretion to have some allowance for flexibility if somebody that just doesn't work for the 2 full days and 2 half days or 3 full days type thing. So the other thing that we did, and this kind of highlights how well it works, is that we were building a new feature into our application called Pairs. We built in events so that our clients can define events that people can register for, and that kind of thing. And early on in the process, we picked the team that was going to work on that. And one of the team members, well, two of them actually, are fully remote. One lives in, well, kind of moves all over, but currently in Florida, and then the other one was in New Hampshire. And we actually paid to have them come and stay in Manhattan for 2 weeks and had some really intensive planning meetings in person. And that kind of was one of the pivotal moments that just really clinched how much energy we had. And it kind of organically caused people to have like impromptu pair programming where, and like they were just like building these prototypes and things a lot quicker than we would see happen if they were fully remote. And the energy was amazing, and it was just a really great experience. um, and I think that covers all of my main points. And so I'm going to hand it over to Joel, and then I think I think we'll allow time for a Q&A. And I'll also point out, I just remember John Keller is also on from Canopy that can help field questions during the Q&A, and he's our director of product. So with that, I'll hand it over to Joel. And did I
Thanks, Brent.
forget to share my,
No, you're
no?
sharing. We're
Okay.
good. Yeah. Um, yeah. So Brent's talked a little bit about how internally to the company we've handled working remotely and hybrid and kind of where we settled there. And that definitely stems from and has a big impact on our culture as we work together as a team. But one of the things that's been true since we started doing this work, really all the way back to like 2015, 2016, when we started dealing with states outside of Kansas coming onto the system, was that we've had clients that are remote. And so I want to talk a little bit about how we approach that, working remotely with clients, what that looks like, how we ended up here, and some of the things we've learned. So one of the things I'll note is that working remotely with clients and working remotely in general, as kind of Brent has described, isn't necessarily our first choice. And there are circumstances that put us here, but between what we learned internally and also just engaging with clients, there is something that you lose out on when you're remote. And that doesn't mean that that can't be overcome and that that might not be worthwhile, but it's just something to keep in mind. I think early on in COVID, as people were all working remotely, I heard some people say, well, you don't lose anything when you work remotely. And when everybody's working remotely, then it might be kind of a level playing field. But there is a difference when you have in-person and remote kind of dynamics to something, and so you want to be mindful of that. And so with clients, we kind of naturally ended up working remotely because our clients were spread out. We have clients literally coast to coast, Vermont to Washington to California to Florida, even out to Alaska, Puerto Rico, and Hawaii. So we we deal with all the different time zones, which makes scheduling meetings fun. But it's just the reality. And with so many clients, we can't necessarily be in person for all of our engagements. And so that's one aspect of kind of how we ended up there. But then some other dynamics pushed us more and more remote. So COVID was definitely one of those. Before COVID, we used to have in-person trainings when we would primarily in-person trainings when we would take on new states. And so we would go on site for a few days and train them on the system, be able to engage people face to face, things like that. And that worked pretty well. They usually had in-person gatherings of their own that we could come and join. Um, and also the system in its early stages was of a size and complexity that we could reasonably cover the whole system in a few hours or a whole day training. And that changed as well. And so since then, the system has expanded. It's very full featured. We have a lot going on there. And we realized that trying to cram it all into a few hours or a single day or even a couple of days of training wasn't necessarily the best thing. And also, as we were onboarding clients, even during COVID, then they weren't having in-person meetings, so we didn't have that opportunity to join. And so we started to shift and really kind of gear up our onboarding processes and our training processes to be focused on the remote side of it. And so as we did that, some of the things that we learned and tried to implement was that we put a real strong emphasis on building relationships and building strong relationships, especially when you're starting out remotely. It can be really easy to just do business and move on. And so people hop on for a 30-minute meeting or even hour-long meeting. You're doing the work that you need to do, and you've got other meetings, so you hop off and move on. And it kind of can eliminate some of the small talk, the getting to know you. And so we really tried to make a point of engaging people, not just in the purpose of the meeting, but trying to make a connection, trying to build a relationship to whatever extent that was feasible and that worked. For some groups that didn't work as well, maybe they weren't receptive to that, but we always tried to make sure that we were focusing on building a relationship because that relationship has to withstand some of the tensions, some of the realities of working remotely and not kind of being connected. And so during that onboarding process, we realized we needed to move to more of a high touch interaction. And so instead of saying, okay, we're going to try and do as much training as we can in one go, so that way we have fewer meetings, we decided to break it out and really have more frequent meetings, usually about once a week, and do the trainings over a larger amount of time so that we had more interactions and had more of a relationship with our clientele. So once we build those strong relationships during that onboarding phase and have kind of built up those connections, then the next thing we realize is that we have to keep the communication lines open and active. One of the differences, and my wife moved from an in-person job to a fully remote job when we were married for several years. And one of the things that she noticed was that all that water cooler talk, all that kind of chance interactions that she had while in person went away pretty quickly once she had remote. And so there would be ad hoc conversations that she wasn't a part of. And so she and her team talked about that and they learned, and we've also learned that it's important to keep those communications active. You don't just say, well, reach out if you need anything or reach out when you need something, but trying to make sure that there's a regular sense of contact and checking in. Again, to maintain that relationship, but also it's very easy when you're not around somebody for them to be kind of out of sight, out of mind. And we didn't want our clients to feel that way about us, or vice versa, that our clients being out of sight, we're out of mind. We're very client focused and wanted to be intentional about that. And so we came up with and already had some ways, but we developed a number of different ways where we're trying to keep those things active. And so one is we have monthly meetings with our clients where we share what's going on in the system. And we also encourage lots of discussion. So not just that our clients are working with us, but that they're working with each other, trying to build that sense of community. Um, and sometimes it feels like those meetings are long and full of again, work to do and discussions, but it helps keep us engaged and we try and keep them lighthearted where we can to make sure that we're maintaining those relationships. So those kind of monthly advisory committee meetings, those are a key part of what we do to keep in touch with clients. We also are moving more and more towards having regular one-on-one interactions with clients where we'll schedule, whether it be monthly or quarterly, check-ins with a client to say, hey, let's just talk, you and us. How's it going? What can we do to help? What do you need? And not waiting again for them to reach out to us and say, I'm having a problem or we need a new feature or things like that. But if we can keep that proactive element to the communication, then it really helps again maintain that relationship and make sure that we're not again losing sight of clients or their needs, that we're staying in tune. And then one of the other things that's always happened and I think always will happen is my department does all the support for the system. And so we have support tickets. A lot of those happen via email, and that's great. It's easy for people to manage and they can send an email off and move on to other things. But we also take phone calls for people who have more urgent issues or prefer to talk over the phone. But one of the things that we've talked about there is even then being willing and fairly quick to schedule a Zoom meeting and say, hey, instead of going back and forth via email 15 times to try and hash out what this issue is, let's hop on Zoom and let's talk about it. And trying to kind of move towards a stronger communication method, a more maybe not fully in person, but more in person, right? Where you get to see somebody's facial reactions, talk to them real time, things like that. And so staying in touch and keeping those communication lines is really impactful that way. And we've gotten really good feedback from clients about that. I can brag on my team a little bit. We provide great customer service. It's been one of the hallmarks of our system, and that's mostly the people that are doing that. That's not so much me, but we value that, and we've gotten really good feedback about that because we're prioritizing being quick in our responses. And sure, an email could wait, and you've probably all interacted with systems where they say, thank you for your email. We'll respond to you within 24 hours. We don't have an autoresponder. We just try and jump on it as soon as we can. And usually that's within 30 or 45 minutes, sometimes longer if we're in meetings, but trying to, again, yes, the remote aspect, the distance aspect, the timing aspect can make things difficult, but we want to show that we're prioritizing that communication with clients, and we get really good feedback about that. One of our clients has told me a number of times that we're the Chick-fil-A of customer support, which I take as a high compliment, and think that that's pretty great. But a lot of that has to do with us prioritizing ongoing active communication. So that's a big takeaway for us. And then one of the last things I'll just mention is that we do want to try and take advantage of in-person opportunities whenever they come about. So again, our clients are by nature going to be remote. When we're working with people, Hawaii, unfortunately, I don't get to do in person with them as much as I'd like. Um, but when there is an opportunity to do that, maybe they do have an in-person gathering and they want us to do a training, then we try and say yes whenever possible. And being on site and being able to chat with people, see them face to face, be present with them and kind of in a full sense does make a difference. And so sometimes that means we go to clients because they ask for a training or they have an event that works out for us to attend. Sometimes that means clients come here. We've had clients stop by our building because they're in town for another reason. And we always encourage that and say, yes, that's great. And whenever that happens, whenever clients are around, We usually broadcast that out to all of our local team members and say, hey, clients are going to come by the office. So it'd be great as many people as can be here, be available to talk to them, to meet them, to interact with them. And so taking advantage of those things, but also conferences. When we go to conferences, which we do a number, usually anywhere from, depending on the year, 3 to 12 conferences a year, um, then we're always looking not only to see about new clients and see who we might be able to connect with, but making sure we check in with existing clients. And it's a pretty common occurrence that when we're at these conferences, that our existing clients come and seek us out. They come and they want to talk to us. Um, and because there's a relationship there, and we want to maintain that. So that's also been something that we found very fruitful. Is not just saying, well, I guess they're remote, we'll just live in remote land kind of forever, but say, okay, even with our clients, where we can, hybrid is great. Being able to make those in-person connections. That isn't always going to work. There's a lot of our clients that I have never met in person and may never meet in person. But for the ones that does work, we always want to try and say yes and take advantage of that. And all of that builds again, those relationships, which means that we haven't really lost clients due to relationships or due to people kind of, some people had to make different decisions with a system. There's been one state that's done that a few years ago, but most of our clients really love us, and we really are kind of inviting them into our culture through our relationships. And so by getting to engage with us in all these different ways and prioritizing, again, ongoing active communication in person where we can, they get to know us and our company in a way that is more than just, faces on a web page or names in a Zoom meeting. And we really value that. So that's a little bit about how we work remotely with clients. There's lots of smaller practical lessons that we could go over, but I guess I'll end there, and then Brent, I don't know if you have anything else to say before we move to questions, but I'll turn it back over to you.
I thought I had something and then I lost it, but I think maybe it'll come up as we do Q&A, or whatever Ron wants to do next.
Sure. Well, the first thing I want to do is thank you guys for an excellent and informative presentation. Where exactly is your office?
In Manhattan, off of Juliet, just north of the library, just down a couple buildings.
Sure.
It's the old Barney and Associates building, if you know where that is.
Okay. Yeah, very good. Very good.
I do remember one of the things I actually, so John does a great job of heading up our student program. And so that has been a really tremendous asset for engineering specifically, because we hire um, computer science engineers to work part time for us, and then that's kind of turned into our pipeline for some of our best full time engineers, and so that's been a really neat thing to watch happen. John has been doing a great job of finding some really excellent candidates that to come work for us, and so we have some really sharp computer science students, and so that goes with the whole hybrid thing in that um, while we do allow students to work remotely, they prefer to come in, and we have a whole student area, and they like the energy and being able to interact with other students and get that um, organic water cooler type experience that just kind of happens as people are walking through their area and different things like that. And it's less intimidating too to kind of when somebody's walking by, like, hey, can you take a look at this? And and that's kind of one of a barrier that we have to work on with students, just because they're starting out in their career and they're like a little bit intimidated to ask for help and whatnot. But we have to kind of work that out of them and say, hey, you've got the job. Don't worry about losing the job. You just ask the questions, and we want to work with you. We want to help train you. So that was the thing that, and I don't know, John, if you have anything to add to that, but you're muted,
You're
John.
muted, John.
Yeah, thank you. No, I think exactly very same philosophy with our student program as what Joel covered with our clients and Brent with our other engineers. And we've had full-time engineers just come sit in that student area that Brent's mentioning, just because it kind of does break down those barriers that I think are naturally there when you're all remote, but when you're in person, you can take those steps forward and break down some of those barriers that might be intimidating to students. And so it just certainly makes them seem more approachable. And then, as Brent said, there are exceptions come up. We allow students to work remote at times, but there's that relationship that serves as a basis for them reaching out then when they do have questions.
Very good. And we'll encourage folks to unmute and ask questions or post questions in the chat. But I want to tell a quick story I think's relevant. We are now working with the University of Missouri on a grant proposal to support the Digital Ambassador Program, which is a local train the trainer program for extension offices to work with folks to help local citizens with digital applications, internet applications. But in the process of working with in Missouri has pioneered this program. They've trained us in Kansas, and so now we're working on a two-state effort. Well, lo and behold, they told us that they're in the process of adopting pairs. So our evaluation and reporting for this grant would be seamless because of the fact that the pairs program exists. So many thanks to you guys, and we appreciate your work on all of that. I did want to ask about marketing. I mean, the days of posting an ad in a magazine to promote your product seem to be long gone. In a remote environment, there's probably trade shows, virtual trade shows. I don't know. How do you market in this remote digital environment?
Joel probably has thoughts on this too, but I will say the best marketing is word of mouth and building a great product. And I feel like it's kind of started to sell itself because it's a good product and because we provide, we're the Chick-fil-A of support, as some of our clients say, I guess. But we do provide really good support, and that really stands out in our today's age. When you go to Walmart and you have to check out your groceries yourself, and just we're almost a lot of things are going the other way in terms of support and things like that. And so I would say, when you have great support and a good product and people are happy with it, it kind of sells itself because people do the word of mouth. The other thing that I mean, we do is we go to quite a few conferences, and we've even ramped up the conferences this year in terms of and that goes with what Joel is saying in terms of having some in-person connection, because a lot of existing clients go to those conferences as well, and it maintains the relationship as well.
Yeah, and I'll just add that so we've gotten we do operate a lot off of word of mouth, and that's always been true. And I think that's valuable. We've also leaned into word of mouth through kind of social media and social marketing. So being present online and present in a community, even if we can make connections there, that's likely where people are going to be spreading word of mouth. They might post on their social media. They might be, interacting with a colleague from a different organization, and all of those things are going to help make us known. We are serving kind of a niche market. It's not It's not a tool that everybody in America needs. And so casting our nets far and wide isn't necessarily going to be the best tool for us. But we do think that, again, making ourselves known in a community, having those strong connections, and then taking advantage of tools like social media, having a good website, a good presence there, being easily found online. Those are all tools that we do. But I really think that, if you look at a lot of the advertising that's happened just more broadly and our culture, a lot of it, even if it's direct marketing, even if it's a online ad that you stream or things like that, there's a lot of push for word of mouth and connection. That's why there's things, whether you like them or not. That's why there's influencers on Instagram, and that's why there are people that you go and you look on Reddit for what somebody's recommending in terms of this product or that. They're looking for those things really through word of mouth. They're looking at reviews, that what other people say. And so we've kind of really leaned into that in a different way. People aren't necessarily posting reviews of our tools online, but valuing those connections really does help spread the word.
Let's see. I'm going to put a 5-star review in for that answer here. So there's a question in the chat, and I think it has to do with a little bit of the hierarchical employment relationship in a business or a remote setting. Could you talk about supervisor employee protocols in building those relationships, training new employees, addressing performance problems, and doing performance evaluations? How does that work?
Yeah, that is an excellent question. I love that question, Kathy, and I'm so glad that you asked it. So I will start by answering this question. It starts with hiring great employees to begin with and making sure that they're a good core value fit. I think if you hire it, like I don't think any business is probably 100% on making a right fit hire. That's a hard challenge, but if you can do your due diligence to make sure that you hire great employees, it really takes care of a lot of things. But the other thing that we do at Canopy is we value one-on-one meetings. And so, like for me in my department, I have one-on-one um, meetings with any direct report every other week. And so I schedule those well, actually, let them schedule it for 30 minutes because the idea is, and this is what I tell the people that report to me, is it's your meeting. This is your chance. It's primarily your meeting to connect and to talk about career goals, to see how I can help you, to talk to me about any roadblocks that you're having. So the main thing is I want to communicate that I'm here to help you do whatever you can to be the most successful that you can be. And other than that, I really want to get out of their way and just let them do their job and um, do what they've been hired to do. And the more that I can get out of their way or assist them in whatever way they need assisted, the better it's going to be. And so, with regard to the performance evaluation piece, really, the performance evaluation at the end of our fiscal year is just a longer one-on-one, and it really shouldn't be any kind of surprise or anything like that because we should be as their supervisor, you should be working basically on towards the performance evaluation at the end of the year and be thinking about that. Like the other thing that I do is I have professional development SMART goals that kind of hopefully is like a the way that I want it to come across is not like an extra thing to do. It's a fun thing to do. Some of the most fun that I have is doing professional development. And so I have them pick things that are enjoyable to them that go along with their career goals. So John and Joel, if you have anything to add, please do.
Well, just ask a clarifying question there, Brent. You have hybrid employees as well as remote employees. And so do you have that biweekly one-on-one with all those employees? And what does that look like for the hybrid versus remote?
Oh yeah, great question. It's the same, except with the fully remote employees, we're doing it over Zoom. I also recently said to all in-person people as well to um, schedule a once a quarter, schedule a lunchtime, and we go to lunch. So that's unfortunately something I can't do with the fully remote, but we do. And this is another thing I forgot to mention is that Canopy has two uh, meetings per year where we have all fully remote people come in to Canopy to do some celebrations, to have fun, to do some planning, to connect, and so we try to be intentional about the fully remote people to continue to build those relationships as well. So,
Yeah.
Joel?
I'll just add on briefly. So, regarding things like performance reviews, we prioritize doing those in person. So at one of those two kind of all hands meetings that Brent talked about, that's when we do performance reviews. So it is a lot like a regular kind of one-on-one meeting, but we make sure to do those in person. Partially, good, bad, or indifferent, you always get a better conversation when it's something that sensitive in person. And so we want to make sure that we're giving people kind of the best of the best and not relegating that to saying, oh, we'll send you an email with your performance review, or even we'll do it over Zoom. We really try and do that in person and prioritize that. Some of the other things, along with Brent, that I'll just mention, I have one employee on my team who's fully remote. So we do try and factor that in. So I actually meet more frequently one-on-one with my remote person than some of my hybrid or in-person team, just because we need to keep that connection, and it takes a little bit more effort, right? It takes a little bit more time, but it's worth it. And I also usually spend a little bit more time asking more intentionally kind of what's going on outside of work, how they're doing, any highlights or notable things from their life when we're with people remotely, because I'm not going to hear as much of that and happenstance. I need to ask those questions and not interrogate them, and they don't have to share more than they're willing to, but just make sure that I'm keeping that door open. And in terms of some of the other aspects that we talked about, building relationships and training new employees, things like that. Historically, we have, and you can see this kind of by the makeup of our company, we have prioritized people who can be in person or hybrid. And when we do that, again, we try and prioritize that they're in person for most of their training. They're in person for the beginning of their work. But even with remote people, that would be, we're actively searching for another position on my team. And if we hire somebody remote, we would expect that they would start in person, if at all feasible, and bring them in person. And that we'll pay for that. That's, but the company is valuing that and wants to make sure, again, that we're giving people the best opportunity to get off on the right foot and having them be with us and building those shared experiences. Aside from that, in terms of protocols, a lot of what we do, we just have to be actively mindful of remote people and what's going on. So when we have all team meetings with remote people, we try and pause and ask, does anybody have a question or a comment from out in Zoom land, and invite some of that, or make sure that we're not forgetting them or disregarding them. When we even have some celebrations, when we release a big feature or do something, and we're going to take the team out for lunch, we'll send gift cards to those people who are remote. And sorry you can't be with us, but we want you to celebrate too, and trying to be mindful of that. So again, like I said earlier, you're not gonna make remote exactly like and just as good as in person across the board, but you can do a lot to mitigate it if you're thoughtful and active about it, and use in-person opportunities intelligently. And I think we just apply that to the supervisor, employee, or team relationships.
I love those examples. Very helpful, Brent.
Something I was thinking about, Kathy, as rereading your question is I don't think that we addressed in is addressing performance problems. And one of the things that I'd like to say about that is I think trying to hire good employees to begin with that fit your culture, hopefully you're not having those, but I have had some of those. And I treat those on a case by case basis, right? And so, and it depends. Some of it depends on why. Like trying to answer the question, why are they having performance problems? And some, in one case that I'm thinking of, it's more they were going through some mental health challenges and some things in their own personal life and whatnot. And so one of the things that I did to address it is just said, hey, let's back you down to a part-time position because it seems like full-time is kind of really stressing you out. And I think it will alleviate some tension if you can not have as much pressure, so to speak, of the full-time position and let's like set some goals for you to achieve in that part-time position. And then if you achieve them, and then if things get more normalized for you, we can work you back up into the full-time position. And we've actually done that, and he is continuing to grow and perform and do well. And so I think it just honestly, I don't know that I have a one size fits all for addressing those. It's just trying to understand the why and to listen to them and to try to have some wisdom in trying to determine what would be the most helpful to get them back on track. The if you ever go down the road of micromanaging and whatnot, I think in all cases that I know, that usually leads to them leaving. So I think you have to be very careful when you decide to do that. Yeah, and the other thing I was going to mention too is that we have a unlimited sick leave policy, and I think that also helps to alleviate some of those things in that we try to treat our employees like actual humans and realizing that they're adults and they people get sick and it's okay. There is an asterisk to the unlimited, that I mean we can't just have people take an entire year off of sick leave without a conversation with their supervisor or whatever, so.
Great question and great responses. I really, really appreciate this. One thread through this, it seems to me, reminds me of a longtime extension coworker, long since retired, who would always start with the relationships. I mean, every meeting, every project, she'd start with the relationships. And boy, that has stuck with me. And that really, it applies, I can see in remote and a hybrid setting that way, if not more so. And so I appreciate what you've shared about how your culture prioritizes that. See if anyone else has any questions or comments. Very, very helpful. is the feedback we've received. Um, just really quick, you have a terrific pipeline, and you're fortunate to have the connection with the computer science department nearby. But you did I hear you say you have a worker who is in Florida and one in New Hampshire? Uh,
Yeah, we actually California, we have two in Kansas City and then one in Florida. The one in New Hampshire moved to Kansas City. Unfortunately, they experienced their apartment caught on fire, and then they had a temporary apartment, and then they were like, let's reevaluate our life choices and where we're living, and then decided that moving to Kansas City would be a little nicer to be closer to family and stuff like that. So.
well, I was intrigued. I mean, it has to do with remote work, but also recruiting talent. I mean, I hear employers say we have to go wherever the talent is, and that talent may want flexibility. And so, a hybrid option becomes almost an expectation. Um, so I don't know if you have any word about recruiting and hybrid or remote work as a factor in that.
Well, I don't know. I guess it's kind of unique in engineering, right? Is that we're dealing with a kind of a twofold problem in engineering, right? Is that you have these engineers and that are demanding some really high salaries in the Silicon Valley, and so I don't think that we can ever really compete with the Silicon Valley salaries. We do try to pay well for our area, and we're actually just purchased some software to help us to evaluate how our salaries stack up against other companies that are similar in our area. That's to be a testament to the people that work here that we're trying to do the best we can to be competitive in our market. If we, you know, I when we post jobs for it just depends on the job, but we'll say that remote is available, or but we do for, like, if we have two identical candidates and one is in person, we're going to hire the one that's in person just because of our hybrid approach and whatnot. And so with engineering, that's another reason that having that pipeline of computer science students from Kansas State University has just been really great. We haven't really had a need to do a lot of job searches per se. We just kind of promote people if we have an availability when once they graduate. And so I doing job searches, it's a lot of effort and work, and doing the advertising and trying to get the right advertising and get right candidates, and um, I don't know, it's just such a really hard thing. So having that pipeline has just been, really pivotal for engineering. And Joel is doing a search right now, so I don't know if you want to say anything about that, or any of the other searches you've done for client success, because it's kind of a different market for client success.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say in addition to that is that um, when we're engaging people that are planning on or asking to be remote as candidates, then one of the things that we start to do is then I at least ask more questions about kind of what their expectations are, but also what their plans are. A lot of what we talked about is kind of what Canopy does, but one of the reasons why our remote people have made it work is because they're putting in the effort too. And so when we hire remote people, or when I consider hiring somebody who's going to be remote, that's one of the aspects I think about is, okay, are you going to make the effort to maintain and build those connections? Because if their idea of being remote is I just get to sit in my house, I don't really have to talk to anybody on the team, work whenever I want, kind of my own life independently and you just send me tasks and a paycheck, that's not the kind of remote worker that's going to work well with our culture and our team. So those are the two aspects I start to ask about in that process is what are your expectations? What are your plans to handle being remote? What does that look like? And I've gotten some really great answers, and I've gotten some people who stare blankly at me and kind of don't know what to say. But it's always a worthwhile question to ask.
Outstanding. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. Thanks, guys, for a terrific presentation. I'm going to give you a virtual round of applause at least. Really appreciate your sharing today and what we've learned about intentionality and prioritizing the relationships and building that culture throughout your company, including remote, hybrid, and in-person workers. So thanks and for your contributions and keep up your great work. Just a quick reminder that our next Remote Work Wednesday, again, will be on the second Wednesday of the month. So Remote Work Wednesday will be on October 9, 2024. And we'll hear from Kansas remote worker Katie Wagner, whose entire company is fully remote. So we hope to learn from those experiences. Thanks again to our speakers, and thanks to all of you for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful Remote Work Wednesday. Thank you, everyone.